A pleasant day to each and every one of us. I'm the next reporter in Chapter 5 titled Project Scope Management. And before I start or explain what is Project Scope Management, there's a case first here, and it says that Kim Yeon-jin was leading a meeting to create the work breakdown structures, or the WBS, for her company's IT upgrade project. So this project was necessary because of several high priority internet-based applications the company was developing. So the IT upgrade project involved creating and implementing a plan to make all employees' IT assets meet new corporate standards within 9 months. So these standards specified the minimum requirement for each desktop or laptop computer, including the type of processor, amount of memory, hard disk size, type of network connection, security features, and software. Kim knew that to perform the upgrades, the project team would first have to create a detailed inventory of all the current hardware, networks, and software in the entire company of 2,000 employees. So Kim had worked with other stakeholders to develop a project charter and initial scope statement. So the project charter included rough cost and schedule estimates for the project and signatures of key stakeholders. The initial scope statement provided a start in defining the hardware, software, and network requirements, as well as the other information related to the project scope. Kim called a meeting with her project team and other stakeholders to further define the scope of the project. She wanted to get everyone's ideas on what the project involved, who would do what, and how they would avoid scope creep. The company's new CEO, Walter Skimmed, was known for keeping a close eye on major projects. So the company has started using a new project management information system that let everyone know the status of the projects at a detailed and high level. Kim knew that a good WBS was the foundation for scope, time, and cost performance, but she had never led a team in creating one or allocating cost based on a WBS. So where should she begin? So these are the learning objectives. Understand the importance of good project scope management. Describe the process of planning scope management. Discuss methods for collecting and documenting requirements to meet stakeholder needs and expectations. Explain the scope definition, process, and describe the contents of a project scope statement. And discuss the process for creating a work breakdown structure using the analogy top-down, bottom-up, and mind mapping approaches. Explain the importance of validating scope and how it relates to defining and controlling scope. Understand the importance of controlling scope and approaches for preventing scope-related problems on information technology projects. Lastly, describe how software can assist in project scope management. What is project scope management? So, scope nag-refer siya nga tanan na work na involve han paghimo han mga products han project nga nan process niya kung paano ito niya mahimo. Then, undeliverable naman is a product produced as a part of a project, and just like han hardware or han software ngan apig yapon niya pag han kanang planning documents ngan meeting minutes. Then and project scope management naman includes the process involved in defining and controlling on what is or it's not included ito na project. So, many of the factors associated with project success, such as user involvement, clear business objectives, and optimized scope, are elements of project scope management. A critically important and difficult aspect of project management is defining the scope of a project. So, an a difficult aspect ng project management kuno is ang pag-define ang scope kano sa na project. Okay, just like what I said earlier, ang scope nagre-refer yan nga tanan na work na involved ang pag-create ng mga products ng project, patigap ang mga process niya kung paano niya gagamiton. And recall from chapter 2 that undeliverable is a product created as a part of a project. So undeliverables can be also product related, such as a piece of hardware and software, or pwede gapihan process related, such as planning and documents or meeting minutes. And the project stakeholders must agree what the products of the project are, and to some extent kung paano nila ma-produce ngan ma-define ang nga tanan ng mga deliverables. So, project scope management includes the process involved in defining and controlling what is or is not included how sa na project. Then, it ensures na ang mga project team and mga stakeholders magamay dahirahin same understanding kung ano ng mga products ang project nga i-reproduce ngan kung ano gyap ang mga process sa project team nagagamiton para ma-produce iton. And so there are 6 main processes that are involved in project scope management. So the first one is planning scope management, involves in determining kung paano ang project scope nga nan requirements niya mamamanage. Second, collecting requirements. It involves defining and documenting and features ngan function na sana han mga products ngan kaupod nila tida ang process kung paano nila himuon ito na sana project. And the third one is defining scope, involves reviewing the scope management plan and project charter, requirements and documents, and organizational process assets to create a scope statement, and adding more information as requirements are developed and change requests are approved. The fourth one is creating the WBS, involves subdividing the major project deliverables into smaller, more manageable components. The fifth one is validating scope, involves formalizing acceptance sa project deliverables. Then key project stakeholders such as the customer and sponsor for the project inspect and then formally accept the deliverables during this process. If the deliverables are not acceptable, the customer or sponsor usually request changes. And the last one is controlling scope. So, nag-involve naman niya in controlling changes ano sa na project scope throughout ang life ano sa na project. And usagay pini nga challenge ang mga IT projects kay ang scope changes often influence the team's ability to meet project time and cost goals. So, ang project managers must carefully weigh the cost nga na benefits and usa nga scope changes. Scope management summary. So, it summarizes the inputs, tools, and techniques nga nan outputs han usa na project scope management. Planning scope management. So, the project team uses expert judgment and meetings to develop two important outputs, and scope management plan and requirements and management plan. The scope management plan is a subsidiary part of the project management plan. So, and planning scope management So the first step in project scope management is planning kung paano ang scope mamamanage throughout the life ano sa na project. So after reviewing the project management plan, project charter, enterprise and environmental factors, and organizational process assets, the project team uses expert judgment, data analysis, and meetings to develop two important outputs amo na ang scope management plan and the requirements and management plan. So the scope management plan is a subsidiary part of the project management plan as described in last chapter 4, and project integration management. It can be informal and broad or formal and detailed based on the needs han mga projects. So in fact, small projects may not need a written scope management plan, but large projects or highly technical projects often benefit from one. So in general, a scope management plan includes the following informations. So the following are the scope management plan contents. The first one is how to prepare a detailed project scope statement. So for example, are there templates or guidelines to follow? How much detail is needed to describe each deliverable? The second one is how to create a WBS. So it is often difficult to create a good WBS because this section of the scope management plan would provide suggestions, samples, and resources para mag-create sa WBS. The third one is how to maintain and approve the WBS. So the initial WBS often changes and project team members disagree on what should be included. The scope management plan describes guidelines for maintaining the WBS and getting approval for it. So the fourth one is how to obtain acceptance of the completed project deliverables. So it is extremely important to understand the process for obtaining formal acceptance of completed deliverables, especially for projects in which payments are based on formal acceptance. And the last one is how to control requests for changes to the project scope. So this process is related to performing integrated change control as described in chapter 4. So organizations often have guidelines for submitting, evaluating, and approving changes sa na scope, and this section of the scope management plan would specify kung paano mag-handle ng change request usa na project. So another important output of planning scope management plan is the requirements management plan. So before you learn about the contents of this document, it is important to understand what requirements are. So the 1990 IEEE Standard Glossary of Software Engineering Terminology defines a requirement as follows. So the first one is a condition or capability needed by a user to solve a problem or achieve an objective. The second is a condition or capability that must be met or possessed by a system or system component to satisfy a contract, standard, specification, or other formally imposed document. A documented representation of a condition or capability, as in 1 or 2. So, the PAM book guide 6th edition or 5th edition defines a requirement as a condition or capability that is necessary to be present in a product. So, a service or result to satisfy a business need. It further explained that requirements included the quantified and documented needs and expectation of the sponsor, customer, and other na mga stakeholders. So these requirements need to be elicited, analyzed, and recorded in enough detail to be included in the scope baseline and be measured once project execution begins. So the requirement management plan documents project on how project management ma-analyze, documented ngan mamamanage. So for example, the chapter's opening case describes a project for upgrading IT assets to meet corporate standard. So, ini naman na standards nag-specify siyahan minimum requirements han catch laptop ngan such as type of processor, amount of memory, and hard disk size. So the documented requirements for this project therefore might state that all laptops include a specific type of processor. So a minimum amount of memory and a minimum amount of hard drive size. And for software project naman, it is helpful to divide requirements development into the software engineering steps: code, elicitation, analysis, specification, and validation. So these steps include all the activities involved in gathering, evaluating, and documenting requirements for a software or software containing product. It is also important to use an iterative approach to defining requirements because they are often unclear early in a project. So, the requirements management plan documents how project will be analyzed, documented, and managed. And a requirements management plan can include the following information, just like on paano magplano, mag-track ngan report ang requirements activities, ngan paano mag-perform ngan configuration and management activities, paano mag-prioritize ang requirements, paano maggamit ang product metrics, ngan paano matrace and capture attributes han mga requirements. What went right? Projected number of jobs for business analysts expected to increase 19% by 2022. Only 49% of survey respondents had the resources in place to do requirements management properly, and 53% failed to use a formal process to validate requirements. So there are several certifications available for business analysis to help meet this need. So several studies cite how difficult it is to manage requirements. Finding qualified people, business analysts, and to do the job is equally difficult. So the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has projected the number of jobs for business analysts to increase 19% by 2022. A PMI survey found that only 49% of respondents had the resources in place to do requirements management properly, and 53% failed to use a formal process to validate requirements. Fortunately, Several organizations have recognized this need and have developed training and certification programs for business analysts. So, the International Institute of Business Analysts, or HBA, issues of both the Certified Business Analysis Professional, or CBAP, and Certification of Competency in Business Analysis, or CCBA certifications. So this organization had over 29,000 members in 2018 and published the third edition of the Guide to Business Analysis Body of Knowledge, or the BABUA Guide. So the International Requirements Engineering Board, or IREB, provides certification as a certified professional for requirements engineering, or the CPRE. Over 37,000 people in 73 countries held this certification in 2018. The PMI began offering a new certification as a PMI Professional in Business Analysis, or the PMI PBA, in 2014. So several colleges and universities are offering majors and minors in business or data analytics at the undergraduate and graduate levels. Collecting requirements. For some IT projects, it is helpful to divide requirements development into categories called elicitation, analysis, specification, and validation. It is important to use an iterative approach to defining requirements since they are often unclear early in a project. So, collecting requirements is the second step in project scope management, is often the most difficult. So in collecting requirements, a major consequences of not defining requirements well is your work, which can consume up to half a project cost, especially for software development projects. As illustrated in Figure 5-2, it costs much more, up to 30 times more, to correct a software defect in later development phases than to fix it in the requirements phase. So everyone can cite examples in all types of industries of how important it is to understand requirements as early as possible. So for example, if you are designing a house, it is much cheaper to decide where windows and walls will be on paper on a computer screen than after the entire house is framed. New processes and technologies are making it easier to define and implement requirements, but it is still one of the most challenging aspects of project scope management. Well, part of the difficulty is that people often do not have good process for collecting and documenting project requirements. So, there are several ways to collect requirements. And the first one is interviewing. So, interviewing stakeholders one on one is often very effective, although it can be expensive and time consuming. But holding focus groups and facilitated workshops and using group activity and decision making techniques to collect requirements are normally faster and less expensive than one on one interviews. And questionnaires questionnaires and surveys can be efficient ways to collect requirements as long as key stakeholders provide honest and true information. Then observation can also be a good technique for collecting requirements, especially ang mga project na involve and pag-improve ang work process and procedures. And for software development naman, And prototyping and document analysis are common techniques and pag-collect ng mga requirements and ng context and diagrams which help to clarify the interfaces and boundaries of a project or process. On Agile software development project, the product owner creates the prioritized product backlog for each sprint nagimpakita gyapon na last chapter 3. Then the benchmarking or generating ideas by comparing specific project practices or product characteristics to those of other projects or products inside or outside the performing organizations can also be used to collect requirements. So even though there are many ways to collect requirements, people who work on software projects in particular have considerable difficulty defining and managing requirements. So, one study revealed some interesting statistic, just like 88% of the software projects involve enhancing existing products instead of creating new ones. Then 86% of respondents said said that customer satisfaction was the most important metric for measuring the success of developing projects. 82% said that feedback naman from customer and partners was the main source of product ideas and requirements, and 73% naman said that most important challenge for their teams was gaining and clear understanding kung ano ang mga kinahanglanon ng usa na customers. But also it is followed by documenting and managing and requirements. Then 75% naman ang respondents were managing a project with at least 100 requirements. Then 20% were managing project with over 1,000 requirements. 70% of respondents spent at least 10% of their time managing and changes to requirements. 33% naman spent more than 25% of their time on such changes. So the majority of software development teams used a hybrid methodology. 26% used or modified waterfall techniques and 19% use agile techniques. 83% of software development teams still used Microsoft Office applications such as Word and Excel as their main tools to communicate requirements. So the respondent listed requirements collaboration and management software and requirements modeling and visualization is the top two software tools on their wish list, followed by test management and project management. The best practice. So Google continues to be among the most admired companies in the world, well known for being a great place to work and for being innovative in developing new products. James Whittaker, former engineering director at Google, responsible for testing Chrome, Maps, and Google Web Apps, wrote a book with co-authors Jason Arbon and Jeff Carolio, also former Google employees, called How Google Tests Software. Whittaker also worked for Microsoft and as a professor and is one of the best known name in testing software. So it is also interesting to note that Google does not believe in fads or buzzwords. In an interview, NFQ asked the authors how Google's approach fits in the wider Agile community. Their response: Google doesn't try to be part of the Agile community. We don't use the terminology of Scrums or bother with Scrum Masters and the like. We have crafted our own process of moving fast. It's a very agile process that doesn't get bogged down with someone else's idea of what it means to be agile. When you have to stop and define what it means to be agile and argue what flavor of agile you are, you just stop being agile. And that will be all. Thank you.